You know, with all my lists that I made of the Powerpuff Girls, I feel like I didn't really do a lot of the characters justice. Yeah, I talked about some of them and the basis of how I feel about them, but I feel like a drawbacks list videos, as good as they are, is that they don't really give you a lot of time to take in the characters and plot of episodes individually. So to make up for the lack of material I wanted to say for a lot of these characters, I decided to go back to where it all began for me. That's right. The Powerpuff Girls episode I'm reviewing today was my introduction to Powerpuff Girls as a series. Hard to believe it's been 4 years since I first got into Powerpuff Girls. Or is it 5 years? Either way, I'm definitely super grateful for all the friends I've made through this show, whether we've drifted apart, stayed friends all this time, or recently became friends. And I'm also grateful for the impact Powerpuff Girls has had on my life. So thanks all of you guys for just being in my life. But enough about me. Let's just dive into the episode that started it all for me. This is Bubble Boy. So this episode starts off in the city of Townsville, like usual. This guy tries getting a soda from the vending machine, but then the Rowdy Rough Boys show up and do their usual rowdy mischief. Here we have some small banter between the three. Or more like Brick and Butch just laying several fat ones on Boomer.
Beating up people for fun is really fun!
Okay, this might be because I'm an only child and I can't relate to the idea of having siblings, much less having brothers, but I feel really sorry for Boomer either way. He just wants to be cool and act like his brothers, but they keep shooting him down. Poor guy. Yes, Boomer is my favorite Rowdy Rough Boy, and this is a pretty big reason as to why. I also like the fact that he seems a lot more innocent than his brothers. All he wants is to just be like them, and that's not really too much to ask from a little innocent kid. Of course, he's not completely innocent, but it's still there. As for the other two Rowdy Rough Boys, I can't really decide if I prefer Brick or Butch. On one hand, Brick is probably the most mature, and I use the word mature very lightly, but he's also one who rags on Boomer the most. On the other hand, Butch does less of the teasing, but he's also, well, yeah. Anyway, Brick and Butch send Boomer off to go steal some candy for the three of them. Even though they could have just busted both of the vending machines open.
Sure, if you want to do it the easy way.
Meanwhile, the Powerpuff Girls are scouting the city when they catch Boomer in the act of stealing candy from a kid.
I just spent every penny of my hard-earned allowance to buy this candy!
What an oddly convenient thing to say that people totally say in the real world.
What are you gonna do? Beat me up?
What else were you expecting? But yeah, they beat up Boomer and take him back to their house where the professor locks him up with a containment ray. Although they realize that Brick and Butch might get the hint that something isn't right now that Boomer can't get back to them. So they decide to have Bubbles go undercover as Boomer and work as a spy for the team. And one person going out into public with completely unsuspecting people, with 3 other people behind the scenes telling that other one person what to say and do?
What? Oh, yeah.
I swear, it's like this episode was specifically made to get me interested in the series.
Well, I guess you're ready. Okie dokie.
Go get him, Timmy Turner. So Bubbles meets up with the other 2 Rowdy Rough Boys at Fuzzy Lumpkins' house, and Fuzzy is tied up. Okay, real quick confession. I didn't really know who Fuzzy was as a character during my first time watching this episode, so I genuinely thought this was where the Rowdy Rough Boys lived and that Fuzzy was their pet. Although, now that I think about it, where do they live? Do they live with him, their creator? They couldn't have lived with Mojo, otherwise he wouldn't be able to surprise to see them in custody battle. I guess it's a mystery. Anyway, the other 2 try to confront Bubbles about the candy, but she quickly finds a lie to save herself from getting absolutely pummeled. And so they're off into town trying to think of what to do.
Get angry, mother.
A little more intense?
Angry!
But then Brick comes up with his own idea.
Ferb, I know what we're gonna do today.
They quickly get bored of that game, so they decide to do some graffiti instead.
Yeah, and dumb. Jeez, Boomer, if you're gonna do graffiti, at least spell the words right.
The thing is, that's actually how you spell it, and how the heck are you guys not suspicious by now? Who's really the dumb one here? Next, they try to spit down a plane. How much snot is in your airways? So anyway, it's Bubbles' turn, and she doesn't really do that good of a job. So Buttercup has to describe in explicit detail how to do it. Okay, skipping past the gross stuff, she just drives Butch into a ditch. Next up, Brick picks up a mutant cockroach, and I am not kidding. That thing has to be mutant because it is huge. And it doesn't get much better because Brick dares Bubbles to eat it. Ew. And also, that has to be a health hazard. That thing is raw and bacteria filled.
They've been boiled for safety.
Anyway, Brick punches Bubbles in the gut, and the mic cuts out on the end of the Professor, Blossom, and Buttercup. So they can't really tell what happened, then they assume the worst. But it turns out that Bubbles managed to outsmart everyone. That also means she ate the cockroach.
Yeah, and it was really disgusting. I almost blew chunks.
That's how you know she made it extra gross on purpose just to mess with them. Anyway, Bubbles releases another snot rocket and it breaks the boys out of their prison. They then fly off and the girls just let them go.
Tasted like chicken.
Good to know it doesn't taste that bad. They say that bugs are the food of the future. I don't know how true that is, but either way, that can help me mentally prepare myself if that is true, because... And that was Bubble Boy. It was passable. Yeah, looking at it from a more analytical standpoint, it's not something I would really call a masterpiece. There's not that much action, and I could see some people finding this episode drawn out. However, it does have a good setup for an interesting plot idea, and it didn't have the worst execution. I just felt it could have been a bit better. Either way, I liked comparing my first initial reaction I had to this episode 4 or 5 years ago to rewatching it again now. Seeing how my views of the episode and the series as a whole changed from what they were back then to what they are now is pretty surreal. Fun fact, I said before that my least favorite Powerpuff Girl is Blossom, but back then, when I was still a newcomer to PPG, she was actually my second favorite. But then Buttercup overthrew her as my second favorite. How did this happen, you might ask? I'll go more into that in a later date. Although, to finish this video off, all I could say is that while this episode is as mediocre as it is, it still holds a special place in my heart for introducing me into one of my all-time favorite animated series. And speaking of Buttercup overthrowing Blossom as my second favorite, how did that happen? That's to be discovered pretty soon, actually. But first, I wanted to do something special for Amphibia since Season 2 is about to end. Also, fun fact, the Season 2 finale, True Colors, was supposed to air today on May 1st, but it got pushed back to a later date that, as of now, we have no idea what that later date is. But I'm not too upset about it, unlike some people. It just gives me more time to do my tribute to Amphibia closing out its second season, and more time to mentally prepare myself for the finale. Also, I recommend you guys stay tuned for that if you want to know what my singing voice sounds like. That's all I want to say for now. See you, peeps!